While Egyptians were obsessed with cleanliness and the desire to appear aesthetically perfect, the methods they used to beautify and cleanse themselves were limited to what they had at their disposal. They shaved their heads to prevent lice. Ancient Egyptians were so plagued by parasites like lice that they took drastic measures to keep the bugs from living on their bodies. People used knives, razors, and tweezers to remove all of their hair in order to limit the number of places lice could live. They covered their shaved heads with wigs made of real human or horse hair. The wealthy frequently owned multiple styles that they could wear on different occasions. If lice infested the wig, it could be easily thrown out. Wigs were also used to keep cool in hot weather. However, because the lower classes couldn't afford nice wigs, they often wore head coverings instead of wigs or made wig-like creations. They chewed herbs to keep breath fresh. Because fresh breath was so important to the ancient Egyptians, they made sure they had easy access to methods for getting rid of bad breath. During the day or after meals, they frequently chewed on herbs such as parsley. Egyptians also used breath mints, which they either made themselves or bought ready-made. Mints were made by combining fragrant spices and herbs like cinnamon and frankincense with cashews and pine seeds. Honey was used to bind the ingredients, which were then heated to form candies. Only the wealthy owned toilets. Many of the toilets owned by wealthy Egyptians had limestone seats. The stone was on top of a sandbox, which someone had the unfortunate task of emptying. Those who couldn't afford such luxuries relied on nature, often digging a hole in the ground. Despite the fact that people drank, bathed, and washed their clothes in the Nile, a large number of people used it as a toilet. Due to the lack of a sewage system in ancient Egypt, waste and other garbage frequently ended up in pits, open fields, or canals, contaminating the river and fields where people grew their food. Only the wealthy had indoor bathing facilities. The average Egyptian took a bath or shower every day, but the methods they used varied according to their social class. The wealthiest Egyptians had bathing areas built into their homes. Bathers stood on a stone slab and had basins or jugs full of Nile water poured on them by their servants. Members of the lower classes, which comprised the majority of Egyptian society, bathed in the Nile itself. They washed their clothing in infested water. Although people wore very little clothing for much of Egyptian history, later periods adopted larger wardrobes and insisted on clean clothing. Clothes were typically made of linen. Garments showed dirt easily because the fabric was white. This necessitated doing laundry more frequently, which was not an easy task. Clothing had to be beaten, rinsed, twisted, and soaked by hand to remove dirt. Due to the labor involved, Egyptians assigned men to do the laundry. While the wealthy hired others to do their laundry and used special facilities, the lower classes had to wash their clothes in the Nile River. Doing laundry in the river also meant risking being harmed or killed by hippos or crocodiles.